Hey, you guys. Sorry we're a little bit late, but that's me, always fashionably late. I'm really happy to not be here alone tonight. I've got with me my awesome friend, the very, very cool Elizabeth Lee Voss from Disobedient Media. And I'm pretty sure that most of you guys will know Elizabeth and her work. So say hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, really honored to be here. So it's going to be a good time.
Very cool. Okay, so before we start, I just want to say a couple of things. So first of all, last stream I did at like 7 o'clock in the morning instead of 4 o'clock in the morning. I was overexhausted and tired, and I didn't really get to get out everything that I wanted to say. I want to let you guys know why exactly it is that I think it's so important for us to go through these documents and to analyze them ourselves. First of all, Snowden gave his life for these files. That's what it came down to, like risked life, limb, and liberty to get these files out into the public arena. And I'm not going to rehash the discussion about like whether they should be all released at once or whether they're not coming out fast enough, because I think we can't have the luxury of that criticism if we aren't prepared to do the work to analyze the documents that have come out. So far, there's been 5 batches of files released by The Intercept. Each of those batches is in excess of 200 files. And I feel very much that people have kind of just sat back and waited for The Intercept to do the job for us. Like, we read the articles that they put out about the Snowden files, but how many of us actually take the time to go through and read the documents and see what is really in them? So this series was based on my original articles, which came about because I suspected that there is information inside those files, information that Snowden risked his life to give to the public, that had not made it into the coverage of The Intercept. Now, I don't think that's at all malicious on their part. I think that different eyes, different journalists, different minds with different experience and areas of interest see different things in those files. And I also think that as time shifts and the news cycle shifts, that different things become of interest and become topical that weren't previously. So I was chatting with Elizabeth tonight and I was saying West Africa is the classic example. A year ago, when The Intercept released these files, West Africa wasn't in the news. It probably wasn't even considered topical or newsworthy. But in the current news cycle, the information in the Snowden files that is about West Africa is extremely topical and extremely newsworthy. And if you've seen previous episodes in this series of previous streams, you will have seen that discussion about the different things that we found out from the Snowden files about West Africa. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to respect Snowden's sacrifice and trying to, rather than just sit in judgment of other people's efforts on the files, to actually put some effort in myself and Elizabeth and other awesome people who are joining me to put that effort in, to find out what are the hidden gems that are sitting in plain sight. So thank you all for being here again. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Liz, for joining me. Liz is an awesome journalist. You can see her work at disobedientmedia.com and at Elizabeth Lee Voss on Twitter.
Yes, and at Disobedient News on Twitter as well.
At Disobedient News on Twitter. Cool. Okay, so I'm going to take a minute just to find which files we were up to from the last session. Elizabeth, I'd be interested to know, like, from your perspective, what impact you have felt of Snowden's revelations, and any specific areas of interest that you have related to these files.
Well, just initially, the initial revelations from him in 2013 spurred so many people to investigate and to question the mass surveillance that goes on. I mean, in a really basic sense, that has been important and impacted everyone. Sorry, my YouTube video is now unmuting itself. But I think that it just cannot be underestimated, the societal impact this has had, and I think that it's really unfortunate that so many people have basically ignored it as well. So I think that's a very broad starting point, but I think it's just, you just can't understate how important this all is. So.
Yeah, really true. And I'm really conscious too that there is so much more yet to come. Like they're from these files, like we can't even begin to imagine them. And also I've noticed like how much these files augment my understanding of the topics. So obviously I've been writing about surveillance related issues for years and years and years, and also like as a target, actually learning more about the way that the NSA targets people has been extremely enlightening. Like the stuff that we found out in recent streams about what's known as the Target Analysis Center and the different work groups that are involved in that, and learning about the targeting process and understanding what a complex beast this is. I mean, I had always thought of targeting at the NSA as being like, you know, one guy at a workstation targeting one person. I didn't understand that they have this like entire matrix, literally, of all of these different groups that perform very specific functions, all working one target together. So one target can have dozens of NSA employees working on that case. And
yeah, that is groundbreaking.
Been really eye-opening for me. And when you hear like the NSA has X thousand employees or whatever, you know, it starts to make sense, the reason for that. And you see how deeply they dig into your life. Like we had thought of it just as like they compromise your cell phone or they whatever, but really they map your entire life. Not just everything you do and everything you say, but when and where and who and how. And it's the level of intrusiveness goes way beyond just listening to you through your cell phone, or just the technical means is like one aspect of it. But they really do map out a person's entire life, and then they try to passively like live that life alongside you.
Yeah, that is
really next level. It's really next level stuff.
Yeah, and I think you've spoken with me before about how the information isn't just used by one agency, that they're sharing the information from various countries, as you talked about with Five Eyes before, and they're selling them to I believe they're selling them between the different countries. Is that right?
Actually, Snowden's revelations at the moment of truth in 2014, part of that was where they talked about the monetary exchange in and out of the NSA with the partner agencies. And when you read these documents, it's all business language right the way through it. It's all customers, and you know, they see the other agencies as customers. They see the government departments as customers. They see anyone who they give information to as a customer. And the reason they're a customer is because they're paying for it.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So we saw that the GCSB receives money from the NSA, and the NSA, in order to give them literally the data of our entire, not only in our entire country, but also multiple countries throughout the South Pacific and Asia. So they're selling that data. They really are literally selling it. And in return, they have certain expectations. One is that they will implant NSA staff at those spying facilities. They call them liaison officers, which sounds like very neutral, but you know, they're basically moles. I mean, that's essentially what they are. So they're actually instituting their own staff members who have their own agendas, you know, the NSA agenda and the NSA loyalties, are operating on the ground in New Zealand and in these other countries and at these other spy bases.
Absolutely amazing. And to have this confirmed and not something that we just speculate might be happening or think strongly that it could be happening, to have it really laid out and documented is so amazing.
I think that Snowden has done a brilliant job of translating this to the general public in a way that they can understand. Like when he says they can see your dick pics on your cell phone, you know, that's something that actually resonates with millions of people. That was for me, that the whole dick pics thing was like one of the breakthrough moments. That was when you see a Snowden video with 10 million hits on it, on that exact topic, because all of a sudden it brought it home for people in a very real way. Oh, my privacy, things I really care about and don't want other people seeing, is being compromised. But the study
Absolutely.
of these documents for me is very fascinating and important from a journalistic perspective. So
Absolutely.
it's, you know, the average person probably, it will not resonate with them the entire targeting process of the Target Analysis Center of the NSA or whatever. You know, these are a bit, we're getting a bit more in depth here in what we're doing, because I do believe it's journalistically important. But I think that Snowden managed to translate to the public in a way that's easy for them to understand, you know, for millions of people to understand that yes, their privacy is utterly compromised by the system. And the next step is really getting across that this is an economic machine. This is, you know, trade. This is like the revelations that we discovered in recent weeks about the UN votes, how Colin Powell was able to go into the UN and able to get a resolution passed that basically shifted the responsibility for the security situation in Iraq in 2004, you know, only 1 year after the US had invaded. Colin Powell managed to shift the entire weight of the invasion onto the UN. And of course, the UN had not supported the original invasion of Iraq. They had in Afghanistan, but not in Iraq. And the reason that he was able to go in and pass this resolution is because the NSA had provided him with the intelligence that proved that, yes, all of these countries are going to support you. He knew who was going to vote for the resolution before he even walked in the door. So it's fascinating to see. And in the West African stuff, the NSA outright said, "This, we are backing up with our military, our economic agenda." They openly say, they nakedly say, we want the oil and we will use our military to make sure that we get it. And this runs completely counter to the narratives that the public have gotten. The public has been told it's for terrorism, it's for security, it's to protect us. But actually it's about oil, it's about money, it's about diplomatic and political power.
Absolutely. And again, it's one of those things that people were saying during the lead up to Iraq and that type of conflict that has continued, but they were not able to prove it until afterwards. And until you have documents like this showing and having them say those type of statements outright, you know, it makes a huge difference to be able to prove it like that. So
absolutely. And that's also what Julian Assange and others have said, is that the major importance and impact of these documents has been not just to say that mass surveillance exists, because that was known, at least in the tech world. It was, you know, highly suspected, if not known, that that was the case. But Snowden has proven that it's the case. He's proven, you know, beyond, it's now no longer up for debate. In 2012, we could debate whether it was true. In 2013, we didn't have to debate it anymore. We knew this is what they're doing. And this is part of the importance of his sacrifice. So in honoring that sacrifice, let's get in and read the documents and find out more about our world and what is really going on and what's really being done to us.
absolutely.
So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started. Now, one really cool thing, actually just stop sharing for 1 second. One really cool thing is I know that Elizabeth is actually going to write this up.
Yes.
So to date, there's been no long form articles based on the Decipher findings. Decipher has very much been almost like bullet points of just the things that we found in the documents, the like raw findings. But Elizabeth is going to turn that into something readable for thousands of people.
So. And it's going to be, and don't, be nice when I'm writing, because the editing process is going to be interesting to do in front of people. So it'll be fun.
It's transparent.
That's a nice way to put it.
An exercise in transparency.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's just have a quick look at chat. Now, where are we? To our files. So we looked at the oversight stuff. We looked at the Terrorism Development Center. I don't remember us looking at France, so I think that this is where we're up to. Now, I'm going to try and get through these docs really quickly today because I literally want to cover all these docs here. So we're going to go for a bit of a faster pace than usual. Right. So it's another story about a guy who's been posted. So we've seen quite a few of these in the past where they're interviewing someone who's been posted at a various geographic location on behalf of the NSA. Okay, we did actually go through that and that was not relevant. And we did the SID Chief of Staff. Oh, good God. Neurobiology. I'm not sure that I'm going to have the necessary expertise for this one, but maybe one of our viewers will. Advanced Analysis Seminar, Computational Neurobiology. It's probably just an announcement that there will be a meeting, right? Affiliation, Fair Isaac Corporation. So we need to have a quick look into them. Topic, Mechanization of Intelligence, Computational Neurobiology. The topic of this lecture is the description of the underlying mathematical basis of cognition. The main thrust of this talk will cover confabulation. Here is a summary of confabulation. It's artificial intelligence, animal cognition. Confabulation is a symbolic prediction technique. Instead of trying to reason from assumed facts to conclusions, it uses a strange form of knowledge to rule out unreasonable outcomes, leaving a core set of not unreasonable possibilities that is an expectation.
Interesting.
Which is the definition of reasoning, and unlike reasoning, confabulation uses a type of knowledge, conditional probabilities between pairs of symbols that are simple and easy to obtain in the required vast quantities. Conditional probabilities. Confabulation is proposed as the underlying mechanism of all vertebrate cognition, so it's animals and humans. And there's the link to the report of this doctor for anyone that wants to go through and actually read more about confabulation. So who is Fair Isaac Corporation? That's the most significant thing that I can see in there. In past documents that we've studied, we've learned that Johns Hopkins University and other academic institutions have been partnering with the NSA to run seminars like this, which is very interesting in the context of what we saw happen with Chelsea Manning when she was hired and then ditched as a visiting fellow from Harvard because of the objections of the intelligence community. The fact that these major learning institutions are showing up as partners in the NSA documents suggests that the intelligence community's influence on academic institutions in America goes well beyond Harvard.
Yeah, that is deeply concerning. Absolutely.
Next document. Looks like Has Blake just told us something about that corporation, I think?
He just said hi.
Oh, okay. Cool. Right. Defense Threat Reduction Agency.
That sounds interesting.
Have you ever wondered what US government entity is responsible for detecting, defeating, characterizing, and preempting weapons of mass destruction? No, I can't say that I have, but I am now. Who determines what kind of munitions you need to penetrate a given facility? How are underground facilities constructed, and how do you determine what they are used for? All these responsibilities belong to the Defense Threat Reduction Agency.
Yeah, it says that they were relying on exchanges between DTRA and the NSA analysts with lessons learned during Iraqi freedom. So,
i.e. that there was no weapons of mass destruction.
yes, exactly.
Okay, so it's basically just we are really great, and this is one of our customers document.
Yes.
Okay, now we have an HR document about overtime pay and compensation. So they do a ton of overtime. And this is General Hayden. We often push ourselves way beyond reasonable limits in the hours that we work. Please remember to care for yourself while doing so. We reviewed the numbers for overtime, comp time, and credit hours earned and have found a staggering increase within the Signals Intelligence Directorate since 9/11. Fiscal year 2001, no info. Fiscal year 2002, wow. So in 2003, which is the Iraq War, it tripled, more than tripled.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But then in only 1 month of 2004 is it this, so it's almost doubling again across the year. Yeah, so in 1 month of 2004, they had almost as much as the entire year of 2002. People forfeiting annual leave is remarkable. You can easily see the trend. We cannot keep up this pace without breakage, either at home or at work.
Yeah, and if they're using this language in official reports, then I can't imagine what it would have actually been like.
That's interesting. The following are not valid reasons for approving overtime or comp time: manpower shortages, poor management.
It's interesting that they actually mention mission loss.
Where is that?
In summation. It says to maintain, yeah.
Does that count as newsworthy? That in the immediate wake of the Iraq War, overtime hours went through the roof, to the extent that the NSA management actually cautioned the entire workforce about it.
I think it's important, yeah.
Okay. In that case, what we do, my extremely scientific method here, is to use Notepad.
Absolutely.
And copy in the title of the document. Oh, that's definitely not the title of the document. Copy fail. Point. Massive employee overtime in wake of Iraq War. Management cautions workforce. And the link we are going to pull from the Intercept. Oh, where is it? Somewhere I can search by batch. Here we go. Search by release, number 3. And it gives me the link. Okay, so when I go to write it up, I know what I'm writing about, what the title of the actual document is, and then I can reference that that's the source link for the post. Cool. Okay, back to our files. Doing SIGINT against public broadcasts. When you say signals intelligence, the first things that come to mind are not press, propaganda, and other public broadcasts, except for processing encrypted or hidden meaning passages. Now that's interesting. Hidden meaning passages in such broadcasts.
Yes.
The foreign now, the reason I say that's so interesting is because that's something I saw happening in New Zealand. I actually saw John Key, and feel free to call me a conspiracy theorist, but honest to God, I saw this. John Key and the national government transmitting tacit messages through the mainstream media in New Zealand. So they would say one thing, but they would let slip something else that was relevant to what was actually going on at the time. And it was interesting that that was done through public channels, and I was picking up on that. It showed that the media is in fact used to transmit messages other than what is just apparent through the headline, for example.
Absolutely, yeah.
The Foreign Broadcast Information Service regularly reports the content of these open broadcasts. During Operation Iraqi Freedom, the identification and location of Iraqi satellite television became a high priority. Look, this scares the crap out of me, what they're talking about here, because remember Al Jazeera getting blown up?
Yes.
I mean, they literally dropped a bomb on Al Jazeera. The question of NSA's authority to conduct SIGINT against such targets has been reviewed by the Office of General Counsel Operations Practice Group. NSA can intercept and process foreign press, propaganda, and other open broadcast signals for the purpose of deriving technical, that's just technical data. I wonder if technical data is including content or just signals. Any of this technical data that is of foreign intelligence value can be reported to appropriate customers. So it could go to any agency virtually in the world. NSA cannot do comment reporting on the content. Okay. This is the responsibility of other organizations.
So what exactly does that mean?
What it means is that, is that CIA who would be, it sounds like it if it's foreign, right?
that makes sense. Yeah.
But what it seems to mean is that NSA can actually like track the channels and the frequencies and the locations of broadcasting and maybe the durations and basically the metadata, the technical data related to the broadcast.
So it seems like what we heard when they said that they were keeping records of when you called, who you called, all of that, but that they weren't listening to the content. Is it similar to that type of?
Well, they do actually listen. They do actually listen to the content.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I understand, but I mean, in this situation, are they saying that they can't get at the content of the transmission, but they can analyze, like you said, the where, when, who, how, that type of the about of it?
I think that they aren't analysing it, they are collecting it and then supplying it to the partner agencies who are then analysing it. That's my understanding. But if it was an NSA target, then yeah, I assume they'd be analysing too. But in terms of the content, I mean, they're very clear, they even underline it. Like they've got an underline. The content of such transmissions is the responsibility of other organizations. So I would assume that that is because there will be specialists like media analysts or whatever at, you know, at whatever other organizations means. It is prudent to note that information needs are the requests put into the NSA information request system by customers relating to press, propaganda, and other public broadcasts are subject to the same national SIGINT requirements process criteria for validation and prioritization as any other requirements. So that means an NSA partner agency can make a request to the NSA for them to obtain this information. Now, why would you want to know like the frequencies and the signals and all that metadata? Would be because you want to compromise it. Absolutely. In some way, because you want to be able to shut it down, or you want to be able to listen into it, or you want to be able to manipulate it somehow. So basically what it means is that all foreign media is fair game to the NSA.
Yeah, that is a very important document. I think it's very newsworthy.
I mean, the title is ominous. I'll use their language. Customers can request SIGINT on foreign media. I see, like, this is something that's haunted me for years as well. In the beginning of the Syrian conflict in 2012, like literally as the first mortars were being launched on Homs, there was a group of citizen journalists who, I mean, when I say a group, I don't mean they were together as a group. I mean, they were individuals, just, you know, disparately, geographically disparate individuals who were live streaming the rebels. You know, they weren't really rebels. They're actually Blackwater personnel who'd come over the border from Iraq into Syria. They did live streams of Blackwater style vehicles lobbing these mortars into the neighborhoods in Syria. And over the following days, those live streamers were tracked down and killed. They were tracked down and killed by their mobile signals. So somebody was using SIGINT. You know, I have no conjecture about which side or which agency it was that was doing it, but someone was tracking those live streamers that were broadcasting that footage, and they were targeting them for assassination. And for me, that was the big wake up, that the narrative that came out about 2 months after that, this was, I believe, January of 2012. From March of 2012, the big media op of the Syrian civil war began. And that's when it was being pushed all around the world that actually this is Syrians fighting Syrians and blah, 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 but it wasn't at all. And those live streams actually proved that it wasn't. Those live streams proved that there were military contractors present in Syria, that the armaments and vehicles that they were using had Western origins, very likely had Western origins. So this type of like SIGINT, I mean, where they say here, SIGINT on public against public broadcasts, not public broadcasters. Public broadcasters would be media organizations. Public broadcasts, it could be you on your cell phone live streaming something.
Yeah, that is a huge distinction to read from that title and from this content, for sure.
And then again, when they say here, the first things that come to mind are not press, propaganda, and other public broadcasts. Foreign broadcast information regularly reports on those anyway. NSA's combatant command customers. Combatant command customers.
That is absolutely chilling language, for sure.
Have articulated SIGINT information needs on the technical details of communications that carry open broadcast. That could be live streaming.
Absolutely.
That could be citizen journalism. And for that to be, those requests to be ordered by NSA combatant command customers, I mean, that's pretty clear that that's not someone just wanting it for, you know, information or even spying, but actually wanting to operationally act on that information.
Yeah, that is a critical distinction to make, for sure. Like, they aren't, this isn't just for propaganda or to
interpret it.
Yeah, to grab information to then launch counter propaganda operations. You know, you can kind of sanitize it, all of that, in all of those types of ways. But that really, the language they're using shows what, as you said, what they're going to use it for. And it's definitely not just, not just news broadcasts. It's individual people, possibly.
Look at the classifications.
Yeah.
Unclassified. Unclassified, that this is the expectation, this, you might not think of this is what you would expect, and this is who already does that. Unclassified. Look at this. Secret. NSA's combatant command customers. You know, it almost feels like they were foreseeing, because you go back to the date of the document, right? June 2004, we're like a year and on from the Iraq war. They're talking about using it in terms of Iraqi satellite television. The NSA can intercept and process foreign press, propaganda, and other open broadcast signals. Yeah, that is, I think, probably one of the most significant documents that we found, and I've never read a word about it.
Yeah, I haven't either at all. So, yeah, as you were reading through, I was trying to figure out which exact lines were the most damning, but a lot of those paragraphs that are labeled secret are just so important. So we'll definitely, that first paragraph is, and then the one about, yeah.
Combatant command customers.
And then the one where it says NSA can intercept open broadcast signals and
any
but yeah,
other open broadcast signals.
I think it would be awesome if anybody watching could look into any times that it looks like this has been used. Like, I mean, you can't identify that this is the exact program this has been used, but where situations have happened, like you were saying, where the journalists, the broadcasters, live streamers were targeted a few days after showing the Blackwater involvement in Syria. If you can show any other situations like that, that would be awesome to look up, I think.
Wow, look at that. Krakatoa says that FICO, originally Fair Isaac and Company, which is that Fair Isaac Corporation that was referenced in the previous document, is a data analytics company based in San Jose, California, focused on credit scoring services.
Interesting.
Credit scoring services company hosting a talk on artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that makes no sense whatsoever.
On neurobiology. Is that seriously what they're doing when they're giving you a credit rating? Or is it a cover for an NSA? Is it an NSA cutout for obtaining data?
Yeah, I think either one of those options would be very, very interesting. Because whether they're using like big data to analyze your credit rating or whether it's just a shell, is both of those are kind of extremely disturbing, I guess.
Look, that's a classic example of where the document itself doesn't seem on the surface to be that fascinating. Like, yeah, they're having
exactly
like a seminar about this, but yet again, the partner company that they're having it with is the part that is really significant.
Absolutely.
Now, why can't I find this document in the batch? This is a bit strange. Here we go. So now we need to actually backtrack to that previous document and add that in, because all of a sudden it becomes significant.
And I wonder if, I'm trying to think about, because I can see big data analyzing, credit ratings for a number of different reasons but I can't see like learning, like they're talking about different types of learning. And I can't see that as, is there a way that would relate to credit scores that wouldn't be just a shell?
Or artificial intelligence is, then this is going to impact on the way that, on their algorithms.
Yeah.
On the way that they structure their algorithms. So what they're saying is that they've been basing it on reasoning. Reasoning is the status quo.
Yeah.
But that actually this is the reverse of that. Yeah, that public broadcast document is just shocking. Absolutely shocking.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, where was it? Computational neurobiology. So, in the sense of a credit rating organization.
Yeah, it seems bizarre, but.
Now, is the doctor, Crocodile, here's the next step, is the doctor from that organization, or is the organization a partner in the, what we need to know specifically is, did Dr. Hecht Nielsen ever work at Fair Isaac Corporation? Right, so confabulation is the antithesis of the status quo. So the status quo is that we try to reason from assumed facts to conclusions. But confabulation says, confabulation uses conditional probabilities between a pair of symbols. To me, that's that they're trying to use obtuse data sets and they're trying to match up things that are unrelated, whereas reasoning is about matching up things that are related.
Absolutely.
That's my understanding. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but that's what I'm getting from that, is that they have these like obtuse disparate data sets and they're trying to connect to these things that are on the surface unrelated, rather than just to pair things that are already in the family or already in the tree.
Yeah, I'd be
talking about probabilities, right? Mm-hmm. So here they're talking about assumed facts. So we take assumed facts and move to a conclusion. Here they're talking about conditional probabilities. So there is, rather than there being a fact, like Elizabeth and I are connected because here we are sitting on a Zoom, that is a fact. Therefore, they can make a conclusion that Elizabeth and I like each other because we are here together. Just to give you a basic real world example. But what conditional probabilities is where, because they also use the word predictive.
Yeah.
Confabulation is a symbolic prediction technique. So they're wanting to do is to say, sorry to interrupt you, to say Suzie is a millennial, she has long hair and she's a journalist, and Elizabeth is a millennial and she has long hair and is a journalist, and they're both interested in surveillance and telling the truth to people that they don't get from CNN Criminal News Network. And therefore, we predict that at some point in the future, Elizabeth and Suzie will become friends and do a live stream analysing NSA documents from the Snowden files.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that I think it's interesting. It says required vast quantities, and that makes a lot of sense when you're looking at anything like credit scores. There's huge numbers of people, so that fits that.
What concerns me is that they are setting up databases like that as a honeypot, and then just sucking the data up into the NSA systems.
Absolutely.
Okay. But then in theory, they already have access to it, even if it's an external company. So I'm not sure why specifically, but obviously it's of some use. I guess that Cockatoo will have the answer for us if he can tell us whether that guy ever worked for that company. Robert Hutt Nielsen is an adjunct professor of electrical and computer engineering at the University of California, San Diego. He co-founded HNC Software and became a vice president of R&D. Okay, so this guy is from that organization. So the next question then, knowing that, is what in the hell does a credit score agency need to have someone like that working for them? So, okay, this is interesting because predictive modeling, we've like always talked about this in a policing perspective, from a policing perspective, not from a credit perspective. You wouldn't think that your credit score is based on predictive technologies and artificial intelligence, but it appears that it is. Okay. You're an awesome help, Cockatoo. Thank you very much for doing this for us, for playing research assistant for us. It's really, really, really helpful. Okay, so back to our document. So, title. My God, we're finding so much stuff. We've only been through a few documents.
It's only been like 1 or 2.
I was like, we're going to breeze through this, you know, we'll get through 10 at a time. And now I'm like, oh my God, this is the most fascinating stuff that we've found in this whole series. Like, falling on. Okay. So.
If we keep finding stuff this interesting, then people will have to just literally tell us what they think is the most interesting for us to write about. Unless you just want me to document everything.
I think a lot of this stuff could be like a full article in and of its own right.
Absolutely, for sure. That's not even a question.
But I think that for me, like when I do the Decipher publishing, I put probably like 2 or 3 sentences about each thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to see you flesh that out into 2 or 3 paragraphs about each point. But it's clear that, I mean, I keep getting in my head the secrets of the Snowden files, because it's like they're there in plain sight, you know, it's exactly like Decipher says, mining the gems that are hidden in plain sight. Like this stuff is in the public arena and no one's telling us about it. And it's really significant. It's extremely significant. Look how much we've learned in like, what have we been on, like half an hour or more? 45?
This is what CNN and the mainstream media organizations should be spending their time covering, obviously, and they obviously clearly don't. And if you're somebody in this situation where you're an independent media or individual, independent media outlet or person who's just trying to be a citizen journalist, then you have this opportunity to look at this and maybe you have the initiative to, but I think most people are living so paycheck to paycheck and so busy with their own lives, they don't have the time and energy to look through this stuff. And that's the problem, is that there's that gap between people's ability, energy, time to look at this, and then the mainstream media that isn't isn't doing their jobs, and so people like us have to try to step up and provide some sort of information. So
look, that's just I mean, I completely agree with exactly what you just said, and I've said it myself several times because it's true. People are stuck in the rat race, and it's the rat race that they've been conditioned into being stuck in. Like, this is very much the future that the powers that be want for us, is to be stuck in that rat race for life. It's very much a deliberate agenda, but you have to make the choice. You have to make the choice. I have very hungry, poor, broke days on a fairly regular basis. I got through a political campaign eating 2-minute noodles, what Americans call ramen, this year on a regular basis. But when I do this work, and I have this sensation frequently, when I do this work, I know that it's like, it is worth it. It's worth eating 2-minute noodles. It's worth being broke. It's significant. This is more, I mean, God, I could earn mountains of money doing some like arbitrary commercial software development project that will have absolutely no impact on the planet, will contribute nothing to human understanding. That my life would just be wasted away, and what am I going to do? Like, buy some Gucci shoes? I don't care about Gucci shoes. I'd rather like have my 2-minute noodles and feel really good about what I'm doing. And I do. This stuff is important. It's more important than like me, like one person. This is extremely consequential.
It is, absolutely.
Right. So, symbolic prediction technique, confabulation, conditional probabilities between pairs of symbols. I still haven't quite got my head around pairs of symbols. I'm assuming that they mean pairs of symbols in a computational aspect, like literally in an algorithm symbols. That makes more sense than anything else.
Yeah, that sounds right to me too. But obviously that type of information is completely over my head, so I wouldn't be giving a very accurate opinion if I gave one. So I agree with you. But
look, this probably isn't the time to get into the fact that I failed school certificate science, but I do know a little bit. I've got a couple of brain cells left to rub together, and that's my analysis of this document. Okay. So now we just go and grab the link from the intercept and we're away. Okay, and what's the last thing I wanted to get in there? As the credit score company. Fair Isaac Corporation. Okie dokie. So we have Johns Hopkins University working with the NSA, and now we have a guy from a credit score company working with the NSA. So they are in academia and in the private space. And interestingly, they're not just in it in a commercial sense, but they're in it and like sucking knowledge like from them.
Absolutely.
And innovation.
Well, and it makes sense. I mean, are they going to train their own people to be experts in these subjects, or are they going to go to the experts on the subject,
They actually have an NSA university. That was something that was in one of the other, they have like their own internal school. That was actually the NSA school in conjunction with Johns Hopkins University's academic courses. Okay, so we have the credit score staff, we have the broadcast staff, we have the employee. See, the employee overtime is almost like inconsequential by comparison to this stuff, though it does show, as you made the point, if management are actually red flagging that, then it must be even worse.
Yeah, I can't imagine what must have happened to provoke that type of language. It must have been very bad. But I think the other documents we've looked at are definitely more significant in comparison.
The second requirements, analysis sensor of excellence.
They do not hold back in their naming, do they?
No. There's honestly dozens of documents in here that are just like, yeah, Signals Intelligence Directorate is awesome. Yeah, we're so good at what we do. It's fantastic. Like, tons of it. It's like, I mean, they talk about propaganda. It's like, this is packed full of propaganda.
Absolutely. And then you end up always hearing about how what's the word? How much of a failure they are at actually being streamlined in their use of money and funds. They have all these issues, but they call themselves stuff like Center of Excellence or whatever. So it's kind of amusing to see that type of naming. But
okay, so they're complaining that people don't understand the requirements documents that they sent from the customers, particularly from the Department of Defense. And they're saying that the word architectures is one that is particularly abused. Now they're explaining that that's IT talk.
it says the goal was to bring to the NSA the best of what's out there, blah, blah, blah. So our own processes can be matured and a program analysis culture can be institutionalized. That's interesting.
An analysis of alternatives.
Yeah. Yeah, this reads like very heavy-handed, self-aggrandizing propaganda type language. Which makes sense because most of it looks like it's unclassified.
When they're talking about acquisition, what they're basically saying there is that the build a strong foundation of acquisition is that when they're spending money. And we know from previous documents that they're spending money on Oracle databases and they're spending money on Microsoft Exchange Server and they're spending money on all kinds of horrible proprietary solutions that they need to understand the impact on that, on the existing frameworks that they have. That if they don't understand the architectures, then they don't understand the impact of the acquisition decisions. And I mean, this is something that you see really, I mean, this is very, very typical problem to come up against in IT, is that you have sales managers from these companies, sales reps from these companies who will just sell a manager, a decision maker, on you will make this much money from this will save you this much money or whatever, and in the meantime you've got some IT guy going, hey, that's actually not compliant at all with our systems and it's just going to create way more, we're never going to be able to actually use this thing. And but the manager is just going, I'm going to save money, I'm going to deliver on my target, I'm going to get a bonus, and the technical requirements kind of go straight over their heads. So I assume that this is like the NSA version of that.
Okay.
Like people who have read the Department of Defense acquisition documents and can't escape the terminology sometimes find themselves in a mental straitjacket trying to figure out what the documents are saying. That sounds very much like managers.
Yes.
Like people, managers. Managers do not understand the terminology because they come from business school, not from, mind you.
Yeah, this reminds me of like the issue when a professor can't turn on the PowerPoint and the overhead machine and the projector, and then they have to call an IT guy and that type of screw up. So
I think this is more that they manager wants to buy one and then discovers that actually it's
doesn't understand what it does.
Yeah. MGQ, where are you? Oh God. So this is another general what's his face is at somewhere document. Okay, I'm not sure why that couldn't handle rescreening. Chief of staff is this guy, I think, something like that. So Hayden was at NSA all the way back in 2004. And yet he was still there. I mean, when did Hayden retire? That's a good question. Like, was it, I want to say like 2012. Am I wrong? No, he was still in when Snowden leaks happened in 2013. Was he not? How long was he at NSA for?
That is a good question.
Okay. So Major General Quirk is the director of SIGINT in Canada. Annual set of meetings between director of NSA and CSE. The Canadians would know about this. Classified. The NSA participants are General Hayden, MG Quirk, Dan Wolf, and 6 other NSA employees. All right, okay. Whoop-de-doo. They're having a meeting. Very much like the Queenstown meeting of the Five Eyes last year, or earlier this year. OPSEC, why you should care. We went through this already. We've already done this in the previous one. Interesting. I wonder why it's showing up again. Exploiting terrorist password. Have I like skipped up? I'm sure we did this too. This
Let me
the password recovery group. Yeah, jumbled pet. Yep, we've done that.
Yeah, I think maybe you scrolled up a little bit within the file.
My Zoom keeps overlapping over the top of it. It's annoying. Focus on Haiti. Yeah, we have done this. Exceptionally controlled information. Yeah, we've done this as well. DEA, we did that. Diversity, we did that. Did I accidentally click on the name? I think that's what I did.
Interesting.
Months, been there. Right, survey group, yeah, we've done that. North Hill, done that. TSC, done that. Friedman, we did that. Okay, no.
Well, while we're finding this, I just saw that somebody had spoken about the Amazon contract, or the Amazon Jeff Bezos having a contract. I believe it's with the CIA to create a cloud structure. And I was just going to say that at Disability Media, we wrote an article relatively recently about Amazon and the influence Bezos has had on the American press, especially like the Washington Post, which he owns. So if anybody's interested, while we're looking, you can go look at that, I guess.
Keeping Congress informed.pdf. These ones are always hilarious. I remember them from the previous documents. Oh, this should be very interesting. Very interesting. Keeping Congress informed. So any significant intelligence activity or significant intelligence failure needs to be reported to Congress.
Interesting.
Why? Because the National Security Act, which governs the NSA, says that the Director of Central Intelligence and the heads of all agencies involved in intelligence activities must keep congressional intelligence committees fully and currently informed of all intelligence activities. Now, you've got to bear in mind that these are the same ones that the CIA was found spying on when they were investigating torture, CIA torture. Well, technically that was the Senate, but moving along. To fulfill their obligation, they have implemented a regulation, the Congressional Notification Procedures. So what is a significant activity? If it has a major impact on foreign policy or national security concerns, affects resources, i.e. money, has risk of exposure of information or intelligence sources or methods, risk management, diplomatic risks, or if the activity has been ordered by the President or National Security Council, or exporting illicit uranium, I mean controlled equipment under particularly sensitive circumstances. What constitutes a significant intelligence failure? An activity which meets one or more of the following criteria may constitute a significant intelligence failure: total or pervasive failure or compromise of a technical collection system, previously total failure or compromise, previously believed to be reliable and secure, pervasive failure to protect against the compromise of a category of intelligence sources or methods. I find this like rather amusing considering like the opium hack.
Exactly.
For example, which is what you'd think is about as catastrophic as it's possible to get, like the entire roster of like security clearance holders in the United States. I mean, even the ones I assume that have been rejected, as well as the ones that were accepted. Losses of intelligence sources and methods incurred on such a scale or over an extended period of time. Unanticipated loss of life that has occurred in the conduct of an intelligence activity. What do they mean, unanticipated? Like, you don't have to tell us if you actually meant to kill them, but if you didn't, you'd have to tell us. I mean, like, really, anticipated loss of life is totally sweet. You don't have to tell the Congress. Discovery of intelligence activities by foreign partners, which have caused problems for the US. Serious compromise of classified information resulting from the provision of which like the GCSB NSA activity in a nutshell right there.
Exactly.
Ah, this is interesting. You have to tell them about bad information. Oh, this is very interesting. This is the Iraq WMD situation. Foreign intelligence or counterintelligence information obtained from a foreign partner. Remember, it was the Egyptian security forces had supposedly obtained the information on WMD. If the information formed any part of the justification for or was otherwise used in the conduct of an intelligence activity which was notified to the Congressional Intelligence Committees, intelligence product that is found to contain a major error. If you are involved in any of the above, you're probably going to get fired, but you need to tell SID congressional issues. So look, they have like a whole team just dedicated to vetting what information they will pass to Congress.
Yeah, I'm sure that is very efficient.
Well, is that for compliance with the National Security Act, or is that to minimize damage? You know, is it like a crisis response, a PR crisis response team? Who knows?
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's interesting to see how much subjective language that they're using, like, you know, the modifier is like significant or
major.
Yeah, major. It's equivocating a lot in the way that it's phrasing this.
And like this, which would likely result in loss of human life. So if it's not going to result in loss of human life, you don't have to tell them that there's a significant risk of exposure of classified information or intelligence sources or methods.
Or if it's just unlikely. And yeah.
I mean, Manning files, right, would be a classic example of that. Like the US government said, like, could represent significant loss of life, and then there was no loss of life. So then would they have had to report it? Of course they would have to report it. So I think some of these qualifiers wouldn't hold much water.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there anything in this document that's particularly newsworthy? I mean, I find it generally useful just as like almost background information, like to know their rules and regulations is very useful, and to know various.
It's good context for sure.
It's contextual. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Okay, but not independently newsworthy. Yeah. Okay. What does a leader do? A leader is prepared.
Technically savvy.
Get out and make your bones. What is this, a mafia organization?
Yeah, and it says NSA is a winner because of blah, blah, blah. That's amazing. Amazingly arrogant language they're using.
Winning. Isn't that very like Donald Trump?
Yeah, well, something like that. Oh, look, your main job as a leader is not getting the mission done.
Like, this is just the churn, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really just, it's just cheerleading. The most important thing I'm seeing actually is when they speak about having 4 generations and transferring knowledge from you know, the boomers to the XY and the X and Y generation.
Oh God, I just can't help but think, like, do we want the baby boomers' knowledge transferred to the Gen
Yeah,
X?
no, I completely agree. I just think it's interesting that they mention that, and you can just imagine the issues that they're having with the older groups, maybe not knowing how to use computers very well, but it's the NSA, and they have, you know, there's practical knowledge.
I think what they're trying to transfer is not experience and knowledge. What they're trying to transfer is the culture.
Exactly.
They're trying to transfer the culture of compliance, of blind allegiance, the
absolutely,
sand, you know. I think that they're looking for continuity, not for evolution. They might like technical evolution, but in terms of the culture, I don't think really the culture evolves between.
And it's about power as well. They're wanting to maintain their grip, but use maybe the technical expertise the younger generations have. That's what it sounds like to me. But they are not employees. They consider themselves consumers of management services.
What?
Nice.
What?
Is this a Walmart document or is this the NSA?
Themselves? Like, what person has ever thought to myself, I'm not an employee, I'm a consumer of management? So, like, what?
I really do honestly feel bad for the person that had to come up with that term.
So some consultant got paid megabucks to come up with
that's true.
The role of a leader will change. We'll see. When I think about what a leader is, like, a leader is someone who empowers people to take action independently. A leader is somebody who, do you know what I mean? A leader is not like someone who imposes compliance. Like, it's a very regimented and military.
Yeah, it's encouraging initiative and helping people develop their own confidence in their talents they have and all these things. And I just can't get over that statement about go out and make your bones. Like, who are they talking to exactly?
Al Pacino. It's Al Pacino talking to Johnny Depp.
I love how they have to point out a leader cares. You have to know people. These are actually people, not machines. They have to say that, like,
they aren't people, they're consumers of management services.
It's like they're having to instruct their employees on empathy.
Oh, I love this. In the hierarchical model, which is exactly what the NSA has, the middle manager had a primary role of conveying information up and down the chain. In a transparent network, the information passes itself.
Interesting. Yeah, that is a good snippet from that. The leader becomes a linchpin.
Oh my God, this is fascinating.
It's so cringy to read. Oh wow.
This is almost dual purpose. Okay, the obsession with delivery is a software development principle. So, I mean, this is something like, as a software development manager, I was totally obsessed with delivery because it almost didn't matter what I did between deliveries so long as I got the deliveries, because at the end of the day, that is 100% the most important thing, is that you actually produce a working deliverable product at the end of it. So I understand from that side of things, the obsession with delivery. But the question is, what are they delivering?
Very, very good point.
What are they delivering? Are they delivering metadata from a public broadcast channel, like a live streamer and God knows where, so that their whatever it was, command, combatant command or whatever center can, is that you delivering? Like, it's all well, well and good to prioritize delivery, but what is it that you're delivering? So your leader is then grading you on the delivery of what?
I'm just rolling my eyes at that paragraph under a leader cares. The whole thing is just nauseating.
I love this. A few employees wondered if I had any legal right to ask those questions. None chose not to answer. Well, I wonder why.
Yeah, and understanding that this is the same agency that collects all of our data. It's kind of ironic when he says, I found richness in all of their lives, Like,
just rubbish, empty words.
Yeah.
This is just hyperbole.
Yeah, it's an advert for themselves within their own agency. And as well, like he keeps emphasizing caring and empathy. And so I guess to me, what that screams is that that's exactly what they lack. And that's something that they're overcompensating for in this document.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Look how easily this can be transferred to, I don't want you to tell me that the intelligence says there are no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. I want you to find the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Like, exactly. This is exactly like this, what this kind of statement is saying. Like, I don't want you to let the empirical evidence sway you from the task that you are being forced to implement. Here we go. A leader describes the culture and the atmosphere of the organization. Which is precisely what we said, what we interpreted from the above. See, a couple of the things in here I find personally useful. Literally 2 in the entire document. And because it's generally good knowledge. But I don't get the feeling that much of this is very authentic at all. And I do very much get the feeling that this is the imposition of a legacy culture. Much as with media, it's the imposition of the legacy culture upon the new generations.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think it's newsworthy, but as you say, it's definitely contextual. I'm going to skip the awards nominations one because there's literally never anything in them. Rank abbreviations we did. Oh, what was the Battle Bridge, a 24/7 Battle Bridge operation?
I've never heard of that.
Okay, so Hayden was director of the NSA from 1999 to 2005. So was Hayden CIA director during the Snowden? Because Hayden was like on all the news channels, like sticking it to Snowden. So perhaps he was CIA director at that time. The Fair Isaac Company is wicked powerful.
Yeah, I noticed that.
In 2002, 95% of all US roaming calls went through their software. I have a PDF they made, and it is scary. I would be very interested to see that. Very interested to see that, Matt.
Definitely. And that's obviously way outside of the realm of just credit scores.
If they have the mobile data, the roaming data, like the implications of that with artificial intelligence and predictive modeling and with credit is like virtually astronomical. The bridges referred to are the two bridges that cross the 6th Ring Road at the junction with Highway 70 west of Kuwaiti town of Al Jara. Al Jara, a town to the west of Kuwait.
Interesting. Yeah, if we write notes on that particular document, we may need to use that, like copy it.
Okay, all right, here. Nation building.
Yeah.
So I thought that I thought the rhetoric was that they weren't nation building. Wasn't the political and diplomatic rhetoric that they weren't nation building?
It's possible, I guess, that they get so caught up in their own level of doublespeak that sometimes they confuse their own narratives.
That would be quite a difficult thing to research, but I would be interested to know about it actually. That's just my memory from being like really old, is that I'm sure that there were specific questions at the time from media.
I remember that word being thrown around, but I cannot for the life of me remember if it was specifically against that idea or if it was pro.
I really feel very sure that they were specifically, because nation, especially in that document, actually, let's just go back to it for a second, where they say rebuilding a country from scratch.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I remember it being, if I'm remembering correctly, I think I remember that being like a dirty word that was thrown around, like, oh, you're nation building.
Yeah. You know? I'm really sure that that was something that they were specifically claiming they were not doing. But this rebuilding a country from scratch, the only reason you would need to rebuild a country from scratch is if you leveled it.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, they essentially did do in Iraq. But
so effectively, yeah, what they're saying is nation destruction, which then leads to the yeah, I think today I saw somebody post the pictures of, you know, on a separate note, Libya before and after our intervention there, and it's just absolutely catastrophic. So yeah, that phrase nation building is really horrific when you think about it.
Well, they literally did level Iraq.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to completely love too how they basically say in this document, where is it?
previous nation building experiences.
No. Winning the war was the easy part.
Oh yeah, that.
2004.
Yeah.
We have won the war. We have won the Iraq War. Okay, I'm going to make a note of this one, because if things are as I recall, then this is yet another example of the, much like the West Africa stuff, where the NSA is openly saying we're going in for economic reasons and we're using our military to support that. If my recollection is correct, this is an open admission that they knew all along that they were going to rebuild the country from scratch, that they were going to level it, start from scratch, and build a nation. And also this, I mean, this is kind of like elusive. They say there are many lessons that can be derived from previous nation building experiences. They're actually openly, stating that many of these like wars of the past have in fact been about that. And the countries we are trying to help by leveling them and rebuilding them from scratch.
And connect the lessons learned with what the US is currently trying to accomplish in Afghanistan and Iraq. Yeah, that goes to exactly what you were saying earlier.
Explore US and UN experiences in post-conflict reconstruction in a historical context. This seriously makes me wonder if the UN not endorsing the Iraq War, and then 1 year later having Colin Powell go and pass the resolution, was 11 something, we had the resolution number in a previous episode, handing the Iraq War over to the UN, essentially, or the reconstruction and the governance, handing it over to the UN. It makes me wonder, was the UN not approving the US invasion of Iraq almost a PR exercise?
That's an interesting question.
That 1 year later, the UN is accepting the responsibility for the, what do they call it here, post-conflict reconstruction. What makes me wonder that is because they're talking about previous nation building experiences, and then in the context of analysing past US and UN experiences in post-conflict, that makes me feel like this is a cycle that has happened before. The US invades and destabilizes the country. The UN comes in and takes on responsibility for the reconstruction.
Yeah, that's potentially a major point.
And if the UN is doing that, having not backed the war in the first place, and if this is a repetitive cycle, so then the next question would be, are there past examples of the US unilaterally invading countries and then passing UN resolutions for post-conflict reconstruction? Okay, this is definitely one that we need to write up. I mean, like, how significant are these points, Like, how massive is a conversation like that? And this document's been out for a year.
Absolutely. One example of that, possibly, that comes to mind is the Kosovo conflict, where the US went in and the UN did as well, but then the UN was heavily involved in the, quote, reconstruction there, but there was a lot of corruption that was shown.
Kosovo there was UN support for the Kosovan War, was there not?
Yes, and they were actively involved.
Sorry, what's that?
They were actively, from what I remember, they were actively involved in the conflict, but then also the quote unquote reconstruction.
That's true. They were involved in the conflict because I remember the trafficking that was going on.
Exactly. Yeah.
There was like horrific trafficking of women. And I assume children is horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, and what was especially horrifying reading about that when I have is that just in the Kosovo example, you have, for example, British tax dollars. You have different nations supporting these operations with tax money that are done by the UN and then are shown to be highly corrupt and be involved with trafficking and all of these issues. So, and I think that a lot of times people don't hear about that their own money is going towards these corrupt.
Yes, the UN member states are supporting it. This is true. I'm thinking what I really want to know is how many of the like 50 US incursions, military incursions, have been sanctioned by the UN and how many haven't, and which ones, and then how many of those had a resolution passed at the UN to reconstruct.
And you have the CIA affected overthrows, but I don't think that would count at all in what you're talking about. But you'd have to differentiate between all of those instances versus the actual examples of us going in and destroying a country outright and then having the UN, or if the UN helped in the reconstruction process. Yeah, I see some other people also pointed out Kosovo. I think that's a really strong example of the issues with this.
Okay, I should probably just tell people that we're still live.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm like, to be honest with you, my mind is pretty blown over some of the stuff that we're discovering. Like the significance of it is like pretty astronomical.
Yeah, and while you're typing that, I'll just say that and I don't mean to plug Disability Media's articles, but we've covered some of the issues with the UN. So if you go to disabilitymedia.com and you search just United Nations, you'll see some articles that we've written about the issues with that. And then I've written an article regarding Zoe's Ark, which was a French charity that was shown to be trafficking children. So there are issues with the UN, and there are issues with NGOs and charities that are using funds that people think are going to help people that are then used for really, really horrific uses, or just are corrupt as far as the money is concerned as well. So.
It's heavy stuff, and
yeah, it really is.
It's important stuff, and there should be a lot more work done on it.
And it doesn't have to always be in wars either. There are times that the UN and aid groups have come in after earthquakes, disasters, epidemics, and similar type of abuses have happened as well. So, and just on the topic of the UN, they were shown to have introduced cholera in Haiti, which killed thousands and thousands of people. So.
Someone has just told me that the stream we've done today will be an important day in history. I'm not so much sure that our stream itself is an important day in history, but I think that the things that we are finding are, like in the tweet that I just sent, are of astronomical importance.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with what you said earlier about it being just really concerning that people don't take the content of these leaks and publications more seriously. And I think even with WikiLeaks, like Julian Assange has said that he can't know all of the important content of WikiLeaks' publications. So all of the time, readers are pointing out or finding really important information in these publications that journalists are not looking at. I mean, if it wasn't for Edward Snowden and if it wasn't for WikiLeaks, people that are attempting to investigate independently would not have any information to go on that was reliable. I mean, maybe they would have a little bit, but there wouldn't be anything like it is now.
I'm just realizing that the true power of the documents is not just in analyzing the individual documents, but in actually pulling together the whole picture. Because as I do these sessions, it's like you say, like the contextual information, it's like a pancake stack. It's like we learn a bit more and a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. And I'm just thinking now about all of these UN documents. There's like probably have been half a dozen documents on the UN distributed across the various sessions we've done. They collectively add up to a big picture. And I think the way that the reporting has been done so far on these documents has been very much, look at this here, look at that there, this is an interesting tidbit. But what is the big picture overall? This is, it's about way more than mass surveillance. I agree. This stuff, particularly the UN stuff, and in relation to the wars, this is like the global governance of the planet. I think the way that we see the UN could be significantly changed. Depending, I mean, I want to find this out, because I'm not saying like conclusively that the UN is known and colluded and that it's just been a PR front for them to oppose invasion, but then to participate in the reconstruction and the peacekeeping. But I'm certainly interested in studying the data. I'd be very, very interested to know which wars they did or didn't support the invasions, and which wars they did or didn't provide the reconstruction effort. I think there will be, that's where we will get the conclusion from, is studying that data.
And then there's also, I mean, when you talk about, are they aware, are they actually planning to go in and do this? I don't know that answer, but I do know that they have repeatedly hired paramilitary private firms like DynCorp, who have massive human trafficking problems. They still give contracts to those companies after they've been shown multiple times to have been abusing people. And I think that it's really troubling to see that with an organization that has this much power. So.
Thank you to the people who are telling people that this is happening. Because as you would know, if you pay attention on social media, you would notice that there is no Russian Twitter bots retweeting us. There is no organization backing us. I have earned $0 for doing this. I am paying Elizabeth $0 for doing this. So we're not here because any organization or government or anyone else wants this done. We're here because this is real journalism. Absolutely. This is exactly what real journalism is supposed to be about: analyzing documents, especially documents that someone's risked their life to put into the public domain. Analyzing those documents and finding the information within them that is significant to humanity, and then to reporting on that, even if we don't have an organization, even if we don't have a paycheck, even if we don't have protection, even if there is risk or danger to ourselves. That is journalism. That is the service of journalism.
Absolutely.
So on that,
and I've received no money from anyone ever for anything. So as you said, totally on our own time. So absolutely. But I think it is important, and that's why we do it. There's no question about that.
So I do really appreciate you people who are acting as research assistants for us in chat. And I really appreciate you tweeting out, because I don't know if you noticed, but in the entire time we've been on the stream, I've probably sent 2 tweets, because I get so engrossed in the analysis of the documents that I tunnel vision, and I completely fail on social media. So if you guys, let people know what we're doing, let them see the playback on the stream, let them understand the significance of what is in these documents, and then maybe some more journalists will pick up the torch. Maybe some people with other specialist knowledge will follow along and contribute. That would be fantastic. That would be really, really great. Okay.
Yeah, the more eyes on this information, the better, and the more people reporting the subjects that come up, the better. It would be just fantastic if somebody like an independent journalist saw something where we miss from this and reports on it. That's what we need to have happening, is everybody looking at these documents and finding what other people don't see.
You know what, I've just realized we should have, and I'll ask the pirates to set one up, we should have a pirate pad. We should have a pirate pad, like where multiple people can contribute, and where we can record research points, because while the stuff, the conclusions that we've made go into Decipher U and now to Disobedient Media, there is stuff that I know will become significant at some point that I've made little notes about, like up here, the Five Eyes business vision, which is like a specific strategic document. We came across sensitive weather intelligence, but didn't actually know what it was. And from the sensitive weather branch is within the critical global targets division in the regional targets product. Like, what the hell? Sensitive weather intelligence for critical global targets. The 5 threads of information sharing, where they say, just do this, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these interesting things. So these are things that I haven't been able to make specific conclusions about yet, but which I'm convinced are going to become significant. They, as you say, contextual information.
Yeah.
It would be great to have a research document, especially now that we definitely want to look in more to that Fair Isaac Corporation.
Definitely. That is a subject that needs its own investigation, for sure.
I'm wondering, I'm just going to have a quick look and see if there's any pirates around who might be able to set me up a pad. That would be really helpful if there is someone around. Or maybe Blake, can you try and track down one of the pirates for me? If there are any that are awake. Okay, Elizabeth, I'm dying to get a cup of tea. I've really got to have a drink because I've been talking so much. I need to wet my throat. Do you want to take turns at having like 5-minute breaks? And because it'd be really cool for you to talk about, because your work, I haven't got to brag about you yet, but your work has been massively significant. I mean, let's be real, the Nation and Salon articles and Bill Binney meeting with Trump at the White House and all the other kinds of things that have happened all track back to you actually picking up on the research findings of the forensicator Adam Carter, et cetera, et cetera. You have been extremely influential and your work has been extremely significant. So tell us a bit about Disobedient Media and about what you do while I make a cup of tea, because I know already. And then we'll swap, okay?
All right, sounds good. I'll see you in a few. All right, well, Disobedient Media, we were founded based on the fact that there were, at the time around the US elections, there was so much just clear media disinformation coming out from the mainstream press. And so we decided that there had to be some sort of pushback from independent media, and we decided there wasn't enough of it. So we were founded in order to kind of provide that factual reporting that would counter the media's just blatant lies on a lot of important subjects. And we were really galvanized, and we were enthusiastic because WikiLeaks provided, in the Podesta leaks, in the Podesta emails, and the DNC leaks, they provided so much hard factual information that you could point to and say, this is what happened, this is the email that was sent, and nobody could argue with you about that. They could try to distract you with this narrative about Russia, but they couldn't argue with the facts that were shown in those leaks. And that is a goldmine to independent journalists, because we don't have to go investigate the NSA or the CIA ourselves, but we can show the emails that were being sent back and forth between these individuals. So that was that was some of the background to why and how we sort of began. And since then, we've covered a lot of different topics. Me and then my colleagues William Craddock, Kenneth Whittle, we've looked into a lot of different subjects, and I think that we've done a pretty good job for independent journalists that are just starting out to uncovering those. What happened with Adam Carter and the Forensicator is that I noticed that Adam Carter put out this amazing site, G2 Space, and in April, I believe, WikiLeaks just tweeted it saying this is a good source of information on Guccifer 2. And so I just asked Adam Carter on Twitter, like, hey, what's this about? And so he explained to me a little bit, and I realized at the time that nobody in the mainstream press, much less the independent media, was really understanding what Adam Carter had put together with this Guccifer 2 information. I thought it was really, really important. And if you want to go check out the website I'm talking about, it's G2 Space. It's about Guccifer 2.0, and it is just an amazing gold mine of information. So Carter has done a lot of research since I've known him, but at the time he was writing about the issue with Guccifer 2 having these private conversations with a woman called Robin Young, and that was where the whole thing started. And from there, I've reported on some of his work where he's shown that basically Guccifer 2 appears to have been created, in his opinion, by the DNC and possibly upper level CrowdStrike members for the sole purpose of discrediting the DNC leaks and to help create this Russian hacking narrative to deflect from the content of the DNC leaks. And from there, after I had reported on his work a little bit, then I got into contact with the Forensicator, who put out his research, and it was, it was groundbreaking. It was amazing, and I'm just really grateful that they were willing to explain their work to me a little bit, and trying to understand, and the nuance with that information that the Forensicator published in his website is theforensicator.com, I believe it's a WordPress site. If you just Google the Forensicator, it'll come up. But his information is important, but people in the mainstream press and sometimes in the independent media, not often, but more in the mainstream press, they misunderstand the significance of what the Forensicator was saying. And that is, he was showing that the information published by Guccifer 2 as in the NGP van files was most likely not hacked, that it was copied. And this is so significant, not because that shows that Russia did not hack through Guccifer 2, and the reason that's important is because the whole narrative had been partially based on the idea that Guccifer 2 was a Russian hacker, and so discounting that debunks the Russian hacking narrative. But the confusion is people seem to have confused that with saying, the DNC leaks therefore are proven to have not been a hack. And I believe that they were not a hack. I believe that they were a leak. But the Forensicator's work doesn't relate to that, because we're assuming that the source of the WikiLeaks publication was nothing to do with Guccifer. That's the whole point. And so if you just leave the the source of the WikiLeaks publication completely out of things, and then you look at Goose for Two separately, that's that's the accurate way to look at what the forensicator is saying. So, you know, some mainstream smear jobs have tried to say that we were fueling conspiracy theories about Seth Rich, and the reason that's impossible is because this was not speculating on the source of the WikiLeaks publication at all. This had, even if Seth Rich did provide that information to WikiLeaks, this does not have any implication on any of that. This doesn't prove that one way or the other. It only shows that Goose for Two is not the Russian hacking agent that he was presented to be in the mainstream narrative. And so it's interesting as well that you see recently mainstream media, the recent Associated Press report come out that tries to almost revive this concept of Goose for Two as a Russian hacker. And going back to the work of Adam Carter, he's done an amazing job showing that the Russian fingerprints that were left on the Goose for Two metadata were very clearly constructed in a way that was to almost frame Russia. And he goes into a lot of technical detail that I cannot hope to get accurate here, but he shows step by step on his website and in his publications that this would have been absurd for Russia to make these blatant mistakes, and any Russian intelligence agency or Russian sponsored hacker worth 2 cents would never have made the quote, you know, the mistakes that were left on this data. And it was interesting as well because WikiLeaks came out with a publication, I believe was it Grasshopper? No, I think that's incorrect. It was one of their Vault 7 CIA files that specifically talked about the ability and capability that the CIA had to misconstrue the origin of a document, I believe. I may be misstating that, but basically what it indicated was that the CIA could, it was malware. It wasn't a document. It was saying that the CIA had the ability to misconstrue the origin of malware. And if you then compare that to what Adam Carter is talking about with Goose for Two, that's very, very interesting. It's that ability to incorrectly attribute the origin of something to a different country. And Adam Carter has then stated as well that he thinks that, well, not that he thinks, he makes a point to explain that CrowdStrike is the only firm that has seen the DNC servers. It's the only firm that has said that Russian hacking happened, that then has supposedly the evidence for it, but then CrowdStrike has not produced that evidence, and it has refused to allow the authorities to look at it at the DNC servers, and it's just an absolute mess. And that area, the whole CrowdStrike issue, is something that the mainstream media usually will not touch. And when they talk about a consensus of the intelligence agencies on that Russian hacking happened, it's never based on evidence, because there is no evidence, and there is only evidence to the contrary. So when you look at the glaring lies in the reporting about this, it's really it's almost amusing if it wasn't so serious. And the ultimate consequence of this, and the reason it's so important, is that then you have, based on the work of Adam Carter and the Forensicator, you have people like VIPs, who have veteran intelligence professionals for sanity. They have come together and produced a memorandum that they sent to Trump that's questioned Russian hacking based on the Forensicator's work, based on citing the Forensicator, citing our coverage of the Forensicator's, of his publication. And you know, just recently you have Bill Binney, who is, I believe, a co-founder of VIPS, and he is a veteran of the NSA. He was the NSA technical director, I believe, for a time. So what that means is that he is aware of a lot of these capabilities that the NSA has, and he's spoken out on the mass surveillance practices. And so to have him champion this questioning of the Russian hacking narrative is monumentally important. And the only way that it's been presented in the media, I mean, they've characterized Bill Binney now as a conspiracy theorist. When they report his work for the NSA, they report him as an employee and not the former technical director. It would be laughable if it wasn't really a real situation. And the fact that, and what this potentially means is that the Democratic Party, working with CrowdStrike, could potentially, and a lot of people would assume that this is the truth once I say it, but I'm trying to choose my words carefully. It means potentially that they would have created Goosefur 2 to cover up and deflect from the content of the DNC leaks. But what that means, it's like if you can compare this to Watergate. The Watergate scandal was not even the contents of the issue. It was the cover-up that was the scandal, the attempted cover-up. And so in a similar vein, this is a huge monumental scandal if it's proven that the DNC and CrowdStrike attempted to cover up the DNC's and the Hillary campaign's corruption by creating a Russian hacking narrative that did or sought to increase tensions with a nuclear power in order to benefit a presidential candidate. I mean, what on earth? I mean, that would be so significant to show that. And, you know, a lot of people have questioned the Russian hacking narrative. You know, you have great independent journalists like H.A. Goodman and Caitlin Johnstone and Lee Camp at Redacted Tonight. They've all questioned the Russian hacking narrative. But what's so important and significant about what the Forensicator and Adam Carter have done is they've given us some hard evidence that it's unlikely that Russia hacked. And to have that evidence to stand on is, I think, why you see CNN and a lot of other outlets just smearing Bill Binney right now. And I'm hoping that this is eventually proven to a degree that even beyond what we've shown and indicated. Oh, and the other thing to know about the Forensicator's work is that a lot of mainstream press has misrepresented his findings as based only on copying speeds. There were a lot of other technical issues that he went through and talked about that all together indicated that this information was not hacked, that it was not hacked over an external like internet connection, that it was directly copied from a computer to a thumb drive type of device. And yeah, so people try and dismiss that claim by just saying, oh, but you can reach these copying speeds via the internet, and that's not a good enough response. There is a lot of other information that he goes through that cannot be even remotely, I don't think, disputed. So, and especially when you have people like Bill Binney or Ray McGovern, who is a longtime CIA analyst, and these are all individuals at VIPS that have stood up for a very long period of time against war. Like we've talked about the Iraq War a lot tonight, and VIPS was founded to call out the shoddy intelligence that in the lead up to the Iraq War. So to characterize them as some sort of Trump ally that are like trying to boost his ratings through disputing this hack theory is completely, absolutely irresponsible. They're anti-war and they're anti-bad intelligence from the sounds of it. And they are challenging the same type of false, incorrect rhetoric that we saw in the lead up to the Iraq War. And I mean, to defend raising tensions with the nuclear power on absolutely faulty evidence, no evidence, and evidence against that narrative is just kind of, it would be shocking if it hadn't happened before. So I'm disappointed in a lot of media outlets that have not done even remote due diligence and have just outright smeared some really good people in VIPS and beyond that. Trying to think of anything else that needs to be explained about this situation.
I am back, by the way, but I just didn't want to interrupt you.
I just ran out of words, so good timing.
I'd like to tie this back to Snowden, because I would like to acknowledge that Snowden has said that he does believe that there was some Russian interference isn't really the right word. What Snowden specifically said is that it is the job of the intelligence agencies to do this, to push their national agenda. And
yeah, absolutely.
And so he believes that there were very likely there was likely some Russian intelligence operations in relation to the US election, be that whatever it is. But what we know is that it's not Decipher 2, and it's
Exactly.
not what the mainstream media in the United States have been pushing around the world. Even in New Zealand media, we see this narrative being pushed. So Snowden's point is simply that the reason for existence of these intelligence agencies is to do these types of things. And then we need to acknowledge that the US, from Obama's video message endorsing Macron in the French presidential election to the file that WikiLeaks published, which was a CIA dispatch order to human intelligence spies from the entire Five Eyes intelligence sharing network. They actually sent New Zealand's human intelligence operatives to France, dispatched them to France with the specific objective of infiltrating all of the parties involved in the French presidential election. So this is standard practice for all of the intelligence agencies. To suggest that it's only Russia doing this is completely ridiculous. It is all of the intelligence agencies around the world interfering in as many elections as they possibly can. And we know that the United States has not just their intelligence agencies, but their military has been used to sway either before or after elections outcomes of democratic governments around the world.
Absolutely. And I think another important point that Bill Binney's made in the past has been that if there was evidence of Russia hacking the DNC, even forgetting CrowdStrike, forgetting the whole access to the DNC servers issue, but if Russia had hacked, then the NSA would have known immediately because they collect everything. And his point was, if they haven't come forward with evidence that that happened from the NSA standpoint, then he thought that was another really important point on the side of concluding that this did not happen, that there is no evidence of that, and that's why they're not producing it. So
okay, so Cockatoo has brilliantly set us up a pirate pad, an Etherpad, where we can work collaboratively online with our awesome research assistants in our audience on YouTube. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to put our findings in this pad, because our findings are written up on decipheru.com and soon on Disobedient Media. What I want to use this pad for is things that we are investigating ongoing, things that we want to find out more about, things that will provide us with more contextual, I love saying this now, contextual information, which could lead to more conclusions in the future that we then will write up. So I will share screen again, and we will just add some stuff into this pirate pad. So here we have the pirate pad. Cockatoo shared the link before into the chat. Hopefully someone can share it again, and you guys will need to bookmark this, add to bookmarks, so that we can use it again in the future. All right. So
before we start on that, if there's any questions that anyone has, like as I was blathering about the whole forensicator Adam Carter topic, feel free to like post some whatever clarifying questions you might have in the YouTube comment section, because I think it's really, really important that people do understand that this isn't that what we reported on, what the forensicator was saying, just wasn't about the source of the WikiLeaks DNC leaks. It was not commenting on that at all. And I know I've said it before, but I'm going to just re-emphasize that, because I think that's the biggest mistake people make when they read about about the coverage of that. And it's something that the legacy press says a whole lot. They try and accuse us of spreading some sort of conspiracy theory about Seth Rich, and that's just so factually untrue that I just wanted to emphasize it again.
Good. Okay. Very helpfully, I'm getting disconnected from the pirate pad over and over again. which is making it a little bit difficult for me to add in what I want to add in. Okay, purpose of this pad to aggregate contextual information and research topics for future use.
Perfect.
Things we want to know more about. Things, entities we want to know more about.
That is so typical.
Yeah. Yeah, look, CrowdStrike is not just, I mean, it's true what you say, it's a private company associated with the Atlantic Council. It's also, its top executives are all ex-FBI. Not only are they ex-FBI, which, I mean, that puts a whole nother spin on the fact that the FBI were never supplied with servers, et cetera, being that they were, in fact, the data was given to those ex-FBI executives. But one of the FBI executives in particular was associated with the FBI investigation of the Stratfor Leaks GI files in WikiLeaks.
Yeah, that's a crucial point.
Extremely significant.
And then also you have the other, I think it was this, the chief technology officer at CrowdStrike, I believe, is associated with the Atlantic Council, which is associated with George Soros. But the significance of the Atlantic Council, at least as far as distributed media is concerned, is that the Atlantic Council has put out a couple of smear articles against us. And so it's just one of those things you run into, but I always find it humorous that they're so directly linked to all of that area of things. And they also, like, for example, when the Catalonia elections, I mean, the referendum was happening, you know, the Atlantic Council call us fake news once again. And so then you see that connection to CrowdStrike, and it's just, they're all in a kind of a sick family, I guess you could say. So.
Okay, this is getting ultra suspect that my connection to the pad is getting killed over and over again.
Well, even if it doesn't stop us, I think that maybe the issue with that is that it slows us down, and it encourages people to get tired of things and just leave the stream, which is unfortunate.
That's all right. I can do this after the stream. We don't actually have to do this right now, but it would be kind of cool if you guys see or think of anything, or actually if you guys, someone whose connection isn't going to get killed over and over again, it would be particularly awesome if you'd go and add in there like future investigative, you know, entities we want to investigate. One of them would be that Fair Isaac Corporation.
Yeah,
Fair Isaac Corporation, definitely. And if you could copy in the other details that were in the chat about that guy, the University of wherever it was.
Yeah, I've got the name somewhere.
University of California, yeah. San Diego guy. And the other things we put there.
If that one person, I think it was Matt, had I think they mentioned having a PDF that was really important. If they have a link to that would be great to put into it.
Yeah, if you could definitely post it somewhere publicly online and then put the link in here, that would be awesome. Here is, I'm just going to dump this in. If someone can format this, it would be really, really cool. Or just any formatting help with the pad at all would be much appreciated, guys.
Yeah.
All right. So in the meantime, we can go back to documents.
Yeah. And
so where do we get up to? The Battle Bridge operation. So that information about the Battle Bridge, if you could add that into the pirate pad as well, please.
Yeah, I saw that one comment in the YouTube comment section that was really great about the location and timing of that. So if somebody can copy that into the pad, that would be awesome.
Did you answer the question before about someone asked you, how do you break the barrier of non-tech oriented people understanding that the forensicator is a valid source?
Well, yeah, the issue with that, there are two things with that. First of all, I am the most non-technical person like on the planet, as like so that's how I consider myself. And so to report on this is something like it has. If I'm going to explain it to an audience that I assume is going to be usually just as technologically ignorant as I am, I'm actually a good person to do that, because to even express it, I have to learn so much, and I can easily translate it to something that non-technologically oriented people can. But I think that the issue with the forensicator as a valid source is important, and it's the thing is that with him being an anonymous source, it would be unreliable, in my opinion, if he was giving it, if they were giving an opinion, if they were saying, I think this happened and I'm an anonymous source. But what they did was nothing like that. What they did was they sent us, and they published reproducible findings from the data itself that was public. So what they said, you could go and verify yourself with the data. This was not somebody's opinion. This was like, it's like if somebody gives you a math equation, you can go do the math equation yourself and check out whether it works or not. And it doesn't matter what the resume is behind the person that gives you the math equation, it's either right or wrong. And so it's similar with the forensicator's data. The analysis was so strong that it stood by itself. It doesn't matter who the person is behind that, as far as whether it's correct or not. You can validate it or invalidate it, and it was extremely strong, and that's why I covered it. That's why I read about it. And I think there are times when mainstream press cites an anonymous intelligence source, but what they're citing is not factually reproducible. You can't go verify it. It's just an opinion, or it's just a vague statement, and that's a completely different situation. So I hope that explains. I hope that answers the question. But and I think the other thing to take into account with that is that the fact that somebody like Bill Binney and Ray McGovern at VIPS, the fact that they looked at this as well with the wealth of experience and knowledge in this whole area and found the analysis significant enough to write a memorandum citing it, I think also for non-technical people, I think that should be a statement of how significant and strong this information was, regardless of who the person is that wrote it. So.
I had promised, actually this is pretty much the story of my life. I had determined that tonight was going to be the last of these. I really thought that we could just get, power on through the rest of the documents and because we are pretty close now. I mean, let's see, what do we really have left? Maybe 40 documents.
They're like 4.
We actually went through a lot. I mean, I think we probably went through about 20 or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if we could have moved a bit quicker, but there's no point in trying to move quicker when there's stuff in here that is massively historically significant.
Absolutely.
There's no point trying to speed through it. We should be doing the opposite. We should be dedicating as much time to it as possible. So I say story of my life because I'm always like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do the other thing. And for fully pure and good intentions, totally good intentions. And then XYZ pops up and, the mission changes. And so I find that like my to-do list, which I thought would take me 2 weeks, is now 5 weeks later and I still have an item or two on it. And I'm just not the superwoman that maybe I would like to be.
No, well, it would be different if the information hadn't been so serious and significant. If it had been a bunch of nothing documents, you could just breeze through them. But it was just really some heavy stuff that we covered. So
yeah, but once again, I feel really proud of the work. Like I feel like what we've done here is really significant. Even the other thing too is this, even if, you know, we don't have to have 10,000 people viewing live, like for it to be significant. It's significant even if it's just me and Elizabeth sitting here. The significance of the information itself is so credible and so significant. That's really the point. And I just hope that we provoke other people into wanting to pick up the cause. And another thing I've noticed, Elizabeth, is it's actually a massive help to me to have a second pair of eyes on that document. I noticed that you're reading different sections of it to me, you're reading at different speeds, and you're picking up on different things that are in there. And it's also, we're not just bouncing ideas off each other, but it's almost like we're in tandem kind of.
Yeah.
And I found that like while you're talking, I'm mulling things over, I'm having some like mental processing time. And that's
likewise,
really helping. It's really helping the process, and this has been by far for me the most enjoyable stream. So I think having maybe we add some other cool people to the grid, you know.
Because, that's what I was thinking at the start of this, is you want as many journalists or just people spotting the things that you miss as possible, because we're trying to go through this at a decent speed. So you are going to miss some things. You just can't help that. And the more diversity you have in the eyes looking at it and what they're interpreting it, how they're interpreting it, the better. So for sure.
I also noticed that, you know, we say the Intercept journalists have missed this stuff. And now I'm looking back and I'm thinking, like, on the previous batches, the first 2 batches that I wrote up on Decipher You, I spent about 24 hours solid of me going through every single document by myself and then doing those write-ups. And now I'm thinking, what did I miss? Like the Intercept journalists have missed these things that I've picked up. But other people might study the same documents and find things that I didn't think were significant, that I didn't think were newsworthy, they actually are now. So
with the different knowledge and experience backgrounds that different people are just naturally going to have. Like I have very little technological background. So some of the stuff that's in these documents is just going to fly over my head. But somebody who's a software engineer is going to have a very different take on it and pick up things that are relevant and important that I would completely miss. So it's really important to have different people looking at these and picking up the little gems that are missed by us and by the Intercept and anybody else.
And also, just on the topic of the Intercept, I'd like to point out that Glenn specifically asked for this to happen. When they released the first batch, he actually said, please look through these documents and report on them. This is not just for the Intercept to do. Like, the Intercept's doing their best with them, but other people need to pick up the torch and do it as well. So this is very much something that he asked for and that he wanted to happen. So I think people should realize that it's not us trying to be adversarial to the Intercept at all, because without the Intercept putting the work into releasing these documents, we wouldn't have anything to be studying right now. So we have to respect that work that was done to even give us this opportunity. The other thing is that I promised Elizabeth it would be 2 hours max, and I think we're already well over that. And I learned from the last stream that I shouldn't stream when I'm exhausted. And I actually have meetings in less than 3 hours, and as usual, left. It's now 7 o'clock in the morning. So I think that we should leave it here.
Okay.
And I think that in a couple of days' time, we should come back and pick up where we left off and keep moving through the documents. Somewhere in that time, in the next few days, I will write up these points that we've discovered tonight.
Okay.
So just reviewing it, we have I have
Go ahead.
about 7 7 major discoveries that haven't been written up yet. So in the next couple of days, I'll add that to the Decipher You article. And in the meantime, Elizabeth is going to do a piece for Disobedient Media based on this series and the findings, specifically the findings of the series.
Yeah, I'm really excited, to compare this to the UN and just all the different things we covered. It's the UN's point specifically is something we've talked about before. So that'll be really good to write about. And then the rest of it as well is obviously very, very important. So I'll do my best writing about it. And we'll see what happens.
There are some very kind, very, very nice comments in the YouTube. You guys are amazing. Thank you all for being here and for helping us with this. I've got like 2 appeals for you really, and for anybody who watches this. The first is, like I said earlier, please help to spread on social media the fact that we're doing this. Get people who care about these issues to watch the videos, to learn the stuff that we're learning with us, to go and read the articles and the write-ups, and most importantly, to share them, because we don't have marketing companies or PR agencies or Russian bots circulating this. It's just purely down to the viewers and to our friends and people who notice what we're doing to actually share it and to spread it by word of mouth. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I have got a top secret project going on that Elizabeth knows a bit about, and we'll leave it at that. But
I won't say anything.
What's that?
I said I won't say anything, but I'll smile.
It is classified S/SI. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I have got a project going on. It is going to be extremely, extremely awesome and cool, and it's going to serve us all for a very long time to come. And I don't want to give away any more than that. However, because we have no sponsors and no funding and no corporate backing, and we won't be utilizing any corporate services of any description, I am doing it on the smell of an oily rag, pretty much like everything that I do in my life at present. So it is greatly, greatly appreciated if you guys will help to support it. I haven't done a specific funding like page or crowdsourcing because I don't actually want to release the details of it until it's launched. And I don't think that we can just say, hey, give us money for something we're not going to tell you about, but
Absolutely.
You know, in a public forum. However, those of you who know my work can probably piece together for yourselves that it is going to be something extremely cool. It is going to be worth our time, and it is going to serve everyone. So if you would like to help me out, it would be amazing for you to support me. You can go to suzie3d.com and just click on donate or something. I don't know. I'll find you the exact link and put it in YouTube. But you would literally feed me and keep me alive while I build this amazing thing. So that would be super, super awesome. But that's not what this series is about. I want to be really clear that whether or not anybody donates anything to me, I would still be doing this. And you can see that because I've been doing it for years if you go and track back through the Decipher You articles and whatnot. So please understand this is not about capitalizing on the Snowden documents, because I'm sure that there are much better ways that it could be done than by this if that was the goal. This is us mining the gems hidden in plain sight because somebody put their life on the line to get these documents out. And we need to respect that sacrifice by reading and studying the information, allowing it to enhance our understanding of the world that we live in, and passing that knowledge on to other people by any way that we can.
Absolutely.
On that note, I just want to say I love you all. Thank you so much for being here and for caring. I genuinely appreciate it. And thank you, Elizabeth. I'm like plotting already to try and get you back on for the next stream as well.
Absolutely.
Because this kicks ass. This is really special and really cool.
It is. Absolutely. I'll be here for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Such a good person. Thank you. Okay, we will see you guys later. I'm going to get 2.5 hours rest. And keep an eye out, and in a couple of days we'll do this all again.
Bye everyone.
Ka kite anō, as we would say in New Zealand. Haere rā. Bye you guys.